The one where Joey loses his insurance is the 4th episode of the 6th season of Friends. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a brilliant episode with, I think, some pretty brilliant moments. I'll go through each part of the narrative in turn. I don't actually have that many notes for most of it, apart from the bit focusing on Joey, but that's no way a reflection of my enjoyment. I still thought this was great. It starts off with Rachel packing things, confirming that she is indeed moving in with Ross, and we have a bit of an argument with Monica about who owns the candlesticks and who gets to take them, and I rather liked how that played out, and indeed how it concluded, because they decided to split them because they never used them anyway. And we'll come back to Rachel towards the end. We also have a subplot focusing on Phoebe, and Phoebe said that her psychic said that she's going to die this week. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with this. Maybe putting just a few more examples of situations where Phoebe might worry she's going to die, such as, I don't know, choking on something. They could have done a little bit more with it, but nevertheless, it was okay, and ultimately Phoebe's psychic died. She got the reading wrong, and Phoebe's response of, well, better her than me. Bit harsh, but the relief was definitely there. Then we come to Ross. Ross is still in denial about his feelings towards Rachel. He doesn't see a problem, or at least is not admitting a problem with Rachel moving in with him. And he has something else to keep his mind occupied as he's giving his first lecture. The scene in Central Perk where he's reading out his lecture to everybody and they're just bored. Very funny, very well done. Really enjoyed it. And quite sweetly, Monica and Rachel decide to go to his first lecture to surprise him. And when they get there, he's talking with a fake British accent. And Monica and Rachel end up talking to people with fake accents as well because they want in on the fun. Ross's explanation is that the accent just kind of came out in response to his nerves. I don't know if that's something that would happen in real life. Kind of seems like maybe it could be, but certainly it was interesting enough. And we'll come back to Ross at the very end. Then we have Joey. And Joey has some really brilliant, what I consider to be quite iconic scenes in this episode. We learn that Joey's health insurance has expired. And then he was lifting weights. And he's developed a hernia. And because he has no insurance, and he lives in the States, he's not going to go to hospital because goodness knows how much that will cost him. But he then goes to various auditions. The first one is very, very creepy. Just the phrase, "Hey Timmy, I've got a surprise for you," is just so haunting, the way he says it. He's clearly in pain. And then to resolve the problem, he puts his hand down his trouser, obviously to put pressure on the hernia. And yeah, the casting director's response to that is exactly what I expected it would be. He then goes to an advert commercial for a bag of Purina pet food, and the line, "Purina 1, point to a bag today," is something that I, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I will say that every time I see a bag of Purina food. And I've probably done that for the last, 20 years maybe. So definitely very effective in that regard, very memorable. Definitely changed the way I look at Purina food. And then he gets the perfect role, the role of dying man. And what I love about this is Chandler is there to support him. He was there to help him shower. Obviously Joey's in pain still, and he's struggling to walk and things. And the scene where he's trying to make the kid cry, which sounds awful. He's dying and he tells the kid to take good care of your mother, and the kid doesn't cry. And then they show him the hernia and he cries, and just Chandler being there. It would have been a good scene even if Chandler wasn't there, but Chandler just added something extra to it. His support for Joey was so sweet, and the way he was helping move the scene along, it was really lovely to see. And I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then we come to the final few scenes, and these are they play out so brilliantly. Rachel, having moved some of her stuff to her new apartment, obviously answers Ross's phone. It's now Ross and Rachel's phone, which is strange to think about. And it's Ross's divorce lawyer. And he probably shouldn't have said this. I imagine, I could be wrong, but I imagine there's some kind of rule where if you're a lawyer, you're not allowed to give any information to somebody unless it's the client, unless they've obviously said you can. But he does tell Rachel to just pass on the message that since he hasn't heard from Ross, he assumes he's decided to give the marriage a try. Rachel's first response was Ross got married again, which in itself is funny. And then she realises. And she decides to storm down. Well, maybe she didn't decide. It was probably a physical response. But she rushes down to where Ross is giving the lecture and just starts shouting at him in the middle of the class. Now, we had just seen Ross admitting to his class about the fake accent and how it happened and why he did it. And then as soon as Ross is confronted by Rachel saying, we're still married, how could you not tell me I'm still your wife? The accent comes back, which I just thought was a very dramatic way for Rachel to find out, and I thought it was very entertaining. And then we have the final scene, not recommended to copy, but Joey is putting on a helmet and Phoebe is about to thwack him with a baseball bat, I believe it was. And then Monica and Chandler come over and they're all about to join in. And of course, the camera cuts off before we get to see anybody being whacked, thankfully. Not a bad way to end things, not a bad episode at all. Personal highlights would be Joey's string of auditions and ultimately how the dying man role played out, and Chandler's involvement there as well. I really enjoyed that. And the way Rachel responded to finding out, definitely a highlight as well. I thought that was pretty great. So a really good episode. It's nice that we've moved forward both with Rachel moving out and also with Rachel finding out that she's still married. Again, I don't understand why she thought they'd get an annulment without her being there and present or anything. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. I just feel like if I were to get annulled, I'd want to be there to make sure it's done. So maybe Rachel trusts Ross more than she should, which is quite surprising given their history. But either way, now she knows the truth, and I'm looking forward to that unraveling a little bit more. And for now, the one where Joey loses his insurance is, of course, a really enjoyable episode of Friends.